And even at my exhibitions, you find people who want to buy my work, but then they have their reservation. Hey, what kind of symbols are these things? I tell them they are voodoo symbols, and they say, hey, so if we buy your work, how does this work? Do we have to pray over it before we put it in our room? That kind of thing. But these are merely artworks, just like any other artworks. It's just that they are artworks in service of a particular spiritual system, a particular spiritual form, right? So it doesn't invalidate the kind of aesthetics that we use in producing the work. It's just another art form.
Hello and welcome to Our Culture, a podcast about media, culture, and politics. My name is Nikote Nikwe. Today we're joined by Sela Adjei, an artist and researcher. His research includes the examination of indigenous art forms and spiritual aesthetic practices in Ghana.
My name is Sela Adjei. Everybody calls me Efo Sela. And I've been an artist as far as I can remember. Growing up as a child, I was making marks on the wall. I was drawing in my textbooks. I think I started experiencing my artistic side as far back as kindergarten, right? Where we spent a lot of time doing arts and crafts and, very creative stuff with our hands. So I've always been somebody who could create and do stuff with my hand. And, in primary school, I used to be the guy the science teachers will come and call to draw the flower and label the parts, draw the animal and label the parts before the lecture, the class could go on. So I felt very recognized in that regard. So I found the need to develop my artistic skills further. So I studied visual arts in Keta Senior High School, and then from there I moved to the university to pursue a degree in arts. But interestingly, I wanted to do painting and sculpture, but I was given communication design to pursue, but that did not in any way stop my passion for art, and whatever I couldn't learn from that program, I taught myself. So from there, I delved very deep into artistic research, which I did for my master's and then my doctoral research as well. I was heavily involved in research about indigenous art forms. I started with storytelling. Storytelling is a very rich art form. So I was interested in ways in which we could retell some of our short stories using new media and digital dissemination platforms. And I did a case study with an Anansi story, and I tested it with school children, and that became the highlight of my immersion into artistic research. And then for my PhD, I did a study on Vodou art and philosophy to really see the connections between contemporary art, modern art, and indigenous artistic forms. And I saw a very interesting connection and so much things that I could borrow from and then learn. So in summary, this is how far I've come.
So your latest exhibition is happening very soon. Could you please tell us a little bit about your exhibition? I believe the title is Zadokeli.
Zadokeli is actually the ever word for eclipse, right? And if you do a very basic research, you realize that in 2020, where we saw a lot of these events happening endlessly, we had about 6 eclipses occurring, and each passing eclipse for me was an era of gloom, right? Why were these events happening in a year where we saw a lot of eclipse? So in ever cosmology, it's believed that when an eclipse occurs, is a warning, right? It's an imbalance in cosmic affairs. It's a period where things misalign. So prayers have to be said. The priests need to invoke the deities, the ancestors, to ask for meaning. Why are we seeing night in the day? Why are we seeing darkness during daytime. You understand? Because it's an anomaly. It's not a natural order of things. That's not how the universe runs. So we see it as an omen that needs to be interrogated, that needs to be explained, because these are very deep, complex ideas that needs further explanation. And so I use my art as a means to interrogate all these events, why these things are happening, and to shine a light, to draw the interesting connections between all these unfortunate events that happen and the eclipse that occurred at each moment. So that's where the title comes from, and that's how it connects to the collection of paintings. So you see a lot of aggression, you see a lot of resistance, a lot of protest, and a lot of metaphysical ideas represented in Zadokeli body of work. So Zadokeli is actually an extension of Hunter x Hunter series, right? Hunter x Hunter series focus mainly on police brutality in America, violence in America, resistance, protests in America, right? But with Zadokeli, it takes different trajectory, right? But the thing that struck me was I didn't notice all these things that were going on around, concerning the brutalities and the lethal police force that were being employed by military personnel and the police force, right? Until I think I had a conversation with a colleague of mine in South Africa. Her name is Palisa. She's late now. Very good friend. So I was exchanging ideas with her. I was telling her about my new upcoming exhibition. And this exhibition should have even been open a long time ago during the COVID era. But because of all these restrictions, I just put a hold on it, and I was just producing work. So she told me, but what happened to George Floyd? Similar events happened to South Africa. Happened in South Africa, but because a lot of the protests were in solidarity with what happened to George Floyd, it overshadowed similar things that happened in South Africa. There was the July unrest in South Africa. There were massive protests. There was even a spike in femicide in South Africa. They had the largest protests against domestic violence in South Africa and all those things. And then even a few months before George Floyd was shot, a very young boy, I think he was 13 or 14 years old, Moyo, he was shot and killed in Kenya, right? And then End SARS protests also started, and that's also linked to police brutalities, violence, and all those things. There was the Ethiopian Tigray conflicts that also saw mass graves being uncovered. And then there was also the stabbing epidemic among young black people in the UK. So all these things influenced how I even produced the works for Zadokeli. So I even started shifting my gaze from the police brutalities happening in America, and also focusing inward, focusing on the continent and other areas apart from America. And there were all these interesting connections, and for me, these were connections that were also linked to the metaphysical, right? And this is where Zadokeli comes in.
So could you just tell folks when the exhibition is happening? Give us daytime, location.
Okay, so this exhibition is opening at the Museum of Science and Technology on 25th May 2023. And it's the same day as the day George Floyd was murdered. And it also happens to be the African Union Day. So I think there are symbolic connections there. And anybody who stands for justice, human rights, and also the elevation of African people, if you firmly believe in those values, try to attend the exhibition, and you'll be glad you did, because there's so much to learn.
Music by Ayande.